This is Short-Term Rental Management, the show that is all about short-term rental property management with your host, yours truly, Luke Carl. Here we are. What do you know? What do you say? How do you do? Cashflow Carl, the shaman of short-term, the reverend of real estate. It is a great day for a great day. Fantastic to be here with you on Short-Term Rental Management. Have a big show today. Mr. Bill Faeth from STR Nation. You've got two gentlemen on this podcast that really like to talk. So it should be a good time. I'm going to do my best to let him be the wonderful guest that he is and let him do the talking. But I think we're going to go a whole bunch of different directions on today's show and learn a lot in the world of short-term rental. And I will introduce Mr. Bill here in just a few moments after this week's sponsor. Management Monday is proud to present this episode of the Short Term Show. Management Monday is a weekly course that will teach you everything you need to know about managing a short-term rental from a distance. How to get more bookings, higher ADR, how to hire and fire vendors. Even if you don't want to manage it yourself, you need this course so you know how to manage your manager. Over 10,000 superhosts started their career with Management Monday. And the best part is, it's free for short-term shop clients. Start your journey today at theshorttermshop.com. Theshorttermshop.com. And here we are, Short-Term Rental Management with the man, the myth, the legend, the professional golfer, the short-term rental badass himself, Bill Faeth. How you doing, buddy?
That's the best fucking introduction I've ever had in my life, Luke. You should probably do that for a living.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I did for many years and still do in a lot of ways. You know, but the thing for me is the golf thing is huge in my family. You already know that. Massive amount of respect for golf in general, but my Avery's dad was a pro golfer, and you know it just comes up on a daily basis. It's a huge deal in his family. Her brother was also fairly accomplished golfer in college, and so that's fascinating. I mean, to be a professional athlete of any kind is a huge accomplishment. I mean, it just says a lot about the kind of guy you are, for one thing.
You know, it's interesting. So I had no idea about that with Avery and her father. And the other ironic thing is my oldest daughter, I was just sharing with you, I get to take her to her first GNR concert here in a couple of weeks here in Nashville. She was a goalkeeper. And I was going through the recruiting process, and she went to her first ID camp at Belhaven University, right, where Avery grew up, obviously. So all these things that kind of intertwine in life is really small. And my daughter decided in the recruiting process that she was not going to play college soccer. She just wanted to go to Belmont for education.
Interesting. That's cool. Yeah, Avery, she doesn't talk about it, but she got recruited by 54 different universities. As much scholarship as you can get for a female soccer player, and did win a Big 12 championship her freshman year. At the age of 17, she graduated high school a year early to go to college to play soccer. And yeah, so she's very accomplished as an athlete herself, and it runs in her family. And quite frankly, I get annoyed with it because there's so many overachievers in her family. I'm like, how am I supposed to, you know what I mean? Like, I can't, I got to try so hard every day just to pull my weight, you know, but it's good to surround yourself with people that are crushing it, I suppose.
Well, someday I want to be invited down to the hunting farm or whatever it is. Yeah. And I got to meet Avery's dad, because I promise you, I'm younger than him. I'm 50. But I dropped out of UCLA early. So like literally early 90s. Him and I were playing on like the Hogan tour and that type of stuff at the exact same time. I'll bet I know we have mutual friends, and we probably even met each other, you know, when we were out there at some point, which is pretty funny.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Hogan tour. Yeah. He's the nicest guy on the planet. He really is. He's impossible not to know. If you've been in a room with him, you know him. He's one of those guys, and everybody loves him. And he's still, he's 60 something. And I just golfed with him a couple of weeks ago. I didn't golf. I mean, it's just one of those things that I just, it's so hard. I almost just don't even want to I'm so bad at it. It's like I just don't even want to bother. But I drove the cart, and it was we had like 4 guys out there, and he still crushes it, man. I mean, I don't know anything about it, but watching him makes me want to try even less, because it's like I mean, how am I supposed to compete with this? So.
Right.
But yeah. You come to hunting anytime, man. We'd love to have you. So what do we talk about today? We have no agenda, which is awesome. I love that. And I guess first and foremost, what are you seeing as far as changes in the industry? We had a lot of people get in over the last 2 years, and now there's a lot of chatter out there. And just give me your thoughts on current affairs.
I mean, I'll share with you kind of a personal story I'm going through myself right now. I have my first condo. I've never bought a condo before. I've been a big, single family home purchaser. I've done multifamily in the past, but in my short-term space, I really focused on high-end single family homes. And I found this diamond in the rough in Montana, right at the entrance of Glacier National Park. And it's a brand new build. Family built it. It's like a super luxury 2-bedroom, 2-bath. There's 4 that were for sale for $950. There's no comps. I can't get a commercial loan. I'm in pretty decent shape. I've made $1 or $2. I can qualify. I cannot get a commercial loan. I've been through 6 banks for commercial loans, local, national, and I am relegated to having to do a traditional second home, like an occupied second home, a non-investment property, to be able to even qualify. Because the comps, when you use the word investment loan or investment for these people, do not support, because it's so new, and this market segment of property doesn't exist in the 3 closest markets, so they're not able to get appraisals or comps on this property. So the lending, and it's not just this, I'm personally going through that, and I want to share that because I think a lot of people think, oh, Bill can just do whatever he wants. Avery and Luke can buy whatever they want. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't matter how much money you have sometimes. Doesn't matter what your DTI is. Sometimes, a lot of times it's based on the property. And one of the things that I do is I like to build super properties, right? And finding those today is challenging, but even more challenging is the funding aspect for a lot of people. I could go DSCR. I'm not a fan. I don't want prepayment penalties. I don't want to pay an extra 2%. I don't want to pay points up front. So I've elected to go down the path of doing my second traditional, Fannie and Freddie.
Okay, cool. And so why are they shooting you down? Just because they're skittish on the asset, or they're not familiar with it, or what's the deal?
Kind of both. I mean, so these, I'll kind of tell you the story. The family that built these, so it's 4.2 miles to the entrance of West Glacier.
It's $950, and how many bedrooms?
2 bedrooms,
2
baths, and a loft and a 1-car garage.
And $950K.
Yep, in Coram, Montana.
Coram. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So you got West Glacier, the entrance to West Glacier here, and then you've got Coram, Hungry Horse, then you drive into Columbia Falls, then Whitefish. So it's like 25 minutes from Whitefish. So the only comps to be able to pull 25 minutes away are from Whitefish, and the banks will not pull those comps. They're pulling data from, there's nothing luxury, there's nothing high end in any of those, nothing in West Glacier, nothing in Coram, nothing in Hungry Horse. I've got mastermind members that own in all 3 markets. They're horrible. So I've got a mastermind member that bought a 3.2 in Hungry Horse, and he's doing $1,800 a night ADR during the summer, and he's cranking out $250,000-$260,000 a year on 150 to 160 day a year season. But the banks won't look at that. They look at the combination. They wouldn't even take Air DNA data on the local banks that were there. The national banks don't want to touch it because it doesn't, there's no appraisal in the market. It's only a half of a season, and they don't believe the projections that, I put together, and the other 3 people that I helped buy the other 3 units that were available, that they could do that. So the bank, Whitefish Credit Union, that I just spoke with yesterday, they said, our appraiser shows that this will do $30,000 a year. And I just wanted to say, do you think I'm not fucking stupid to spend $1 million on a property that's going to generate 30 grand?
And what are you speccing it at? Like, what do you think it'll gross?
Well, so AirDNA has it at 85,000. The existing owners, I have their rent roll, and you can even see it in the comp set when you go into Rentalizer and AirDNA at 105. I look at the historical data of my portfolio nationwide from the Gulf Coast to Montana. I'm outperforming AirDNA's 90th percentile right now by 61%.
Yeah.
So if I add 61% onto 105, I'm pushing 165, 170. If I had 61% onto AirDNA's 85, I'm pushing 135 to 145. So what I do is I typically reduce that down to what my mastermind members call the mastermind markup. My mastermind members typically do about 30% above the 90th percentile as a whole, because we track the data on a monthly basis. So I kind of do a good, better, best scenario. My good scenario was around 125, 130. My average should be 145 to 150, and then 165 to 180 would be premium. I fully believe I'm going to do 200K, probably 195 to 200 in a 145-day season. So that means I've got to get about 1250 ADR out of this property.
145. So that's what's the math on that? That's less than half of the year.
Yep. We'll probably be about 40-45% occupancy max.
Right at 45. So you only have to work less than half of the year for 200 grand gross on a condo. So you don't even have any maintenance really. It's all.
And let's say, and it's brand new. It's nails, man. I mean, the construction, they own a lumber company. So they hand milled door casings, furniture. They hand milled their own stairs, their cabinets. I've never seen a house under 5 million built this well. So the marketability that we get, and here's the deal: a lot of people, as you know, Luke, don't do deep research. So what I was able to find out is this property between there and the entrance to Glacier National Park, there is no residential zoning. So this is like the last new construction available with current zoning. Now somebody could go and try to get, a commercial rezoned into residential, but it's very challenging in that market. So there's a lot of protections in place for these purchases that are going to be there. Even if I do 150, I'll be more than happy. I am also having to, on the commercial, I even offered to put 30-35% down. They still weren't interested. It was totally about the asset, not by my qualifications by any means. So the only way that I'm going to qualify is one, either through DSCR, which I'm going to pass on, and two would be to traditional Fannie and Freddie.
And it seems like this is probably, vacations are not unfamiliar in this vacation town, properties. It seems like probably what's going on there. So I don't understand why they're balking at it. It seems like it'd be right in their wheelhouse.
I mean, so the only comp you can pull from an appraisal side, well, that nothing there had been appraised. Now there's 4 units. One has already been appraised. It came in at 950. There will be 2 closings in the next 7 days, both at full price, 950.
Okay.
Outside of those closing and being recorded to where an appraiser can actually use them, they have to go all the way through Whitefish back up to the ski resort at Whitefish Mountain. They don't view it as the same market because they view this market being completely shut down essentially from mid-October until the park reopens, typically in May. There's no question you can do some ancillary revenue. You could do midterm out there, but there'll be some ancillary revenue for holidays and stuff like that out there. There's still other things that can be done. There's snowmobiling and a bunch of other outdoor activities during the winter. Fishing still there, a lot of that stuff. But it's non-traditional. And I think that's one thing that's a challenge is when you are try to stay ahead of the curve and you do things that are non-traditional, you don't fit in that box. A lot of people will just shut you down. But it's really the asset value, the average 2-bedroom in Quorum, Montana. It's a very small place. So if you take Columbia Falls, Quorum, and Hungry Horse, the average 2-bedroom is transacting at around $400,000. So you're talking literally 55% below asking price.
Do I have a view?
Yeah, mountain views.
Mountain views. Is there skiing or is mostly national park or both?
4 miles to the entrance of the Glacier National Park. No skiing. You're a good 45-minute drive to Whitefish Mountain to skiing.
45 minutes to Whitefish. That's not bad. That's not bad. We were in Whitefish last year.
Yeah, you remember when you took your kids to go do the Clydesdale stuff?
Yeah. We went because
my other house there is about 2 miles straight out that highway.
Okay, great.
So from where you were out of the Clydesdale stuff, it's 45 minutes.
Yeah,
From downtown Whitefish, it's 30 minutes.
Which is fine. I mean, Whitefish is worth a 45-minute drive. So yeah, that's cool, man. I mean, and you're going to use this thing, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we probably won't as a family. We will 100% rent it. The only reason we would rent it is if we didn't have renters that were there and we were going hiking or doing something in the park, because it's so hard to get tickets to get into. And this is another marketing component, because we're less than a 5-minute drive to get into the park. At Glacier, like if you guys wanted to try to get into Glacier and you didn't have tickets when you were there this summer, just like us, I spent 2 weeks out at our other house in July. You have to get inside the gates before 6 a.m. So that proximity for somebody to save that drive time to be able to get inside the gates is a huge deal, because tickets are almost impossible to be able to get, for tourists that aren't planning well in advance. They put them on sale in spring. So very challenged. Like I live in only, like I said, about 2-3 miles past that Clydesdale deal. And that's a good 50-minute drive for us to get to the west entrance. So we went in 3 times while we were there. We had to leave no later than 5 a.m. and really 4:45 to ensure that we could get into the park before it opened.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, we were there, and it was the wrong time of year. We couldn't even get in, but we didn't. That was not why we were there anyway. It was too much snow, I guess. We were there to ski, and it was fantastic. Loved every minute of it. Montana is a wonderful place. So that's cool. That sounds like a pretty exciting thing to keep you busy for a minute. You'll go there and stay in it for a little while and get it all set up, or is it coming completely ready to rock? Or
so one of the things that I like to do is I try to get, if the furniture's good, I will typically keep it. Since they handmade everything, they had 2 queen size beds with queen size headboards that were beautiful. So we asked for a few things. We asked for their stuff that they milled, and inside in the contract. And we asked if they would make us king size headboards as opposed to the queens that they had, and they agreed. So we got about half the furniture, but I also negotiated a credit for $12,500 because it's already plumbed for a hot tub with electrical and water. So we kind of called that the hot tub budget. Since I'm using a 1031 to cash in, I like to try to pull some of that cash out at close and have a holdback so I can use that for furnishings and that type of stuff, because it obviously, as you know, it decreases my cash investment, increases immediate cash flow and cash on cash return. So my wife has it designed. Essentially, she's just waiting for the go ahead. Make sure when we get the clear to close, she'll order. She'll probably be there for 3 to 5 days, do murals, do some custom painting, that type of stuff. And typically within about 8 to 10 days post close, we're usually up and rolling, and can start renting. Now here, it's the challenge will be permitting. So we cannot even apply for an STR permit until we take possession and ownership and everything's recorded with Flathead County. So that will probably take another 30 days, maybe 45. We most likely will not be able to rent kind of at any volume until spring, which means we're forecasting for the carry cost to take us all the way through, most likely till around the 1st of May.
Okay, great. What's the exchange? What prompted that? You just had enough equity, you needed to move it on, or?
So, I mean, I am a guy that's I look at my time valuation and I set goals financially. So I'm not the guy that wants 50, 100, 200, 300 units. I'm the guy that wants the least amount of units generating the highest amount of cash flow. So I had a property on Beach Mountain that was my lowest performing property. It was doing about 19% cash on cash return in 2021. I'd owned it for about 14, 15 months. Equity had built, and I decided to sell and re-leverage those 1031 funds. The ironic part is I was under contract with a property in Kentucky when I decided to sell after I was under contract. So no contingency there. And then I was just going to apply those funds because I had a 30-day close on Beach Mountain. I had a 45-day close in Kentucky. Well, the Kentucky deal fell apart. And so then I had to redeploy. So I was looking with January down in your guys' area where and Avery live.
Yeah.
And as recently as to within the last couple of days, actually, but I identified 2 properties in that area. They fucking both went under contract within 5 days of me coming back around to them. So now it's like Montana or bust. I have no other option to exhaust the 1031. So kind of back to why I'm always trying to level up my properties. If I generated $158,000 in cash on this property. If I can 1031 that and move that into another property that'll generate more cash, that 150 was sitting in equity in this property, but I was only netting about $31,000 a year on that property. On this property, if I can hit 160, then I should be able to double my cash, my net income by leveling up to this property where I'd be netting roughly between 60 to 65,000. So I'm always looking at net income, not gross revenue. Two real metrics for me: cash flow and cash on cash return. Those are the two big things. So I've always leveled up. Like the hot year, latter part of 2020, all the way through 2021 in Gulf Shores, I flipped 9 properties, made almost $3 million. Kind of what I would call retail flips: buying, holding, renovate, really mostly redesign, rehab, not big moving walls and stuff. We'll do some flooring, appliances, paint, furniture, murals, that type of stuff. And then reselling right in the height of summer. So I'm making 70, 80,000 bucks. I'm getting appreciation. If you remember those days, I mean, we're seeing at the beach sometimes 3 to 5% a week, back then in appreciation, just waiting for houses to sell for more comps to come in. And so I want to be at 10 properties, Luke. I'm currently at 11. I'll be adding another one to go back up to 12. And last year I netted $997,000 off of my properties. I owned 13 to 14 for most of last year. My goal was 800,000 in net cash flow. Now it's like I just wanted to make an extra $3,000 to get into 7 figures, to be honest with you. So I just want to continue to optimize and level up, and then eventually this next year I'll probably take my lowest performing property. If I don't have a 1031 on it, then I'll just sell it and take the cash proceeds and kind of equalize it. So I also co-host 12 to 13 properties as well. And that's really about as much as I want to do. I mean, with the automation and technology I have set up, it takes me it used to be 5 to 7 hours. It's probably 10, 15, maybe even 20 hours, depending on the week. I don't want to work more than 20 hours, to be honest with you. So for me, it's setting those long-term financial goals, the time allocation goals, and achieving it. You and I see this all the time. It's like, oh, hey, I'm buying my first property. I want to scale to 5 in 2 years. Well, why? What the fuck do you want to get out of this, right? It's family, time, hobbies, money. Let's clearly define those objectives and then build the portfolio accordingly.
Well, not only why, but it's also like, when you hear that from folks, and I hate to pick on people, but it's almost like, okay, well, if you want 5 properties in a year, all it takes is loans and down payments. I mean, it's really, it's all it takes. So if you've got some cash, let's go do this thing, and oh, wait a minute. No, I need a partner and this and that. Okay, that's fine. I mean, you and I were talking before this call. Hell, back when I first started, I was driving Uber at night while Avery was in college, trying to throw a couple of extra bucks on the fire and do whatever it takes, well, I want to listen before we
people forget about that stuff, Luke.
Yeah,
they just think that, we were just born wealthy and, we could just throw hundreds of thousands of dollars at whatever. I mean, I was in the same boat when I started, and I bought my, we were talking about professional golf, and I bought my first duplex in 1993 after I dropped out of UCLA, played my first year of professional golf. I netted $180,000 my first year net, and I spent $140 to buy the piece of shit duplex in Bakersfield, California. And I would have never done that. I would have been the guy in Vegas, like drinking, partying, gambling back then when I was like 21, and my CPA said, let's invest into some real estate. Thank God for Jeff Stewart.
Well, Jeff Stewart, hey buddy, where you at? So what happened to that duplex?
I had it for like 11, 12 years and then sold it. And so I paid like 3 something for it. It was worth like 900. And I'm just like, this is kind of a cool deal. Let's keep investing in the real estate. Yes,
totally. Yeah. But we see too many noobs that get all caught up and they want that to happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. You got to calm down, take it easy. Let's go back to the management side of things. So how are you handling all that? How hands-on are you? How many employees do you have that do see that, day to day?
Employees?
Yeah.
Not many right there.
Zero. No
So
assistance of any kind.
I have virtual assistants in my build short-term rental wealth business. I do not have any virtual assistants or anything like that in my owned properties and in my co-hosting business.
No
It's me and my wife. My wife does the back end. She does the books, QuickBooks, all that type of stuff. She helps me a little bit if I'm, doing this and a message comes in on Airbnb and that type of stuff. But I do the pricing optimization, the marketing, listing, guest communication. It's pretty simple. I mean, most of it's automated, at this point. I mean, I use OwnerRez with Hospitable on top of it for messaging. I send an average of, it's like 15 to 17 messages to my guest, 15 messages, I think, that are automated that start, from the welcome message. And I have this series that goes out starting about 3 to 4 weeks in advance prior to check-in, all the way through checkout. And then I just manually communicate with them, if something arises. I think if you can prepare your guest, if you have great communication, digital guidebooks, that type of stuff, and you do a good job putting everything together on the front end, you can mitigate a lot of the communication needs, from your guest. And like I told you, I was in Banner Elk yesterday. My biggest property actually is there. And I just couldn't take it with our cleaning crew anymore. I mean, it was just so frustrating. They started great, and then they just went down this path and descended. And not only did I get some negative reviews because of bad cleaning, but it was just the time it took for me. So every decision I make is about time. I'm 50. I'm going to retire in 4.5 years when my youngest daughter's out of high school. And for me, retirement means that I just get to travel more with my wife, right? As opposed to being locked down doing the school soccer activities and that type of stuff. So kind of optimizing time and how mine and my wife's life evolves every single day is the most important part. So we have to distill our decisions down financially, professionally to doing that. Hence why I don't want to have a massive portfolio. I think it's fairly easy to manage roughly about 20 to 25 properties if you have those systems in place.
So you're doing about 24, 12 of your own and 12 other folks.
Yeah, 11 right now on my own. I've got 12 co-hosted properties currently. And then I'll be adding one more that I own. And once I add that, then I'll probably be looking to sell one more and buy one more to replace it. Because I also have to keep buying because I need the cost seg benefit. I make too much money, not to take advantage of cost segregations and that tax benefit. And that's one of the things going back to that condo that I love is, I'm looking at, 90%, the land value is only 3%. So the cost seg benefit is huge on that condo in Montana. So the only reason I keep buying is for tax purposes. Yeah. That's it. So I kind of just continue to replenish. But after I cost seg a property, I got to be very careful. So I only have about 30% of my properties tied up with a cost seg or a 1031 because I don't want to get 100%. Then I can never touch my money, right? If I had a catastrophic event, COVID, whatever happens, I need to have cash readily available in the real estate to sell if needed. Hopefully I don't ever have to do that. But I think a lot of people just use a 1031 to kick the can down the road, and they don't really understand. You do that 2 or 3 times and you build up a $200,000 or $300,000 tax burden. It's going to eat your cash if you're 40 or 50 and you have to sell that property. You're not going to be able to access that capital, and then the recapture rate on a cost segregation within 5 years is pretty steep. So I think those things have to be considered. So I kind of segment roughly 30% of my portfolio has a 1031 and a cost seg associated. About 65 to 70% is completely unencumbered.
The co-host properties, how did you decide what made you decide to do that, first of all? And then how did you choose who to do it with? And then when to turn it off, when to stop taking more? Yeah,
it's actually kind of a funny story. I met a guy was in my Build Short-Term Rental Wealth Facebook group. He lives about 15 minutes from me. He's like, hey, I've got this Italian villa down here in Franklin. I'm thinking about selling it. I've been doing short-term rentals. Would you come down and take a look at it? Never met the guy. I jumped on a call with him. He was really nice. I looked him up on Facebook. I kind of stalked him a little bit. And I said, cool. I said, I'll come down and do this for free on one condition. I can bring my video guy, Chris, my COO, and we can record everything. And we did. And I looked at what he was doing. Long story short, I went through his property. He had 11 acres in Franklin. And I said, you should sell this. It was worth like 1.2 million at the time. You're only doing $90,000 a year in revenue. Sell this. Let's clear your cash. Take the one-time tax exemption. He had lived in it for 2 years. He'd owned it for like 15 or 16. He owed nothing on it. And I'll help you find a property down in Gulf Shores, and you'll make a lot more fucking money. Long story short, I found a property 2 doors down from my number one performing property that I built. And he stole it at 5-bedroom, 4-bath on West Beach Boulevard, unencumbered views, tier 2 for $875,000. And he's all, will you host it for me? I said, sure. Well, then the guy that bought that house was still shooting Cobra Kai. He's Marty Cove, the Cobra Kai sensei from Karate Kid and Cobra Kai, the series. He was shooting in Atlanta. He's like, hey, Bill told me that you manage this. Can you manage this for me? I said, I can't technically manage in Tennessee, but I'll co-host it for you. And I'll just do communication and marketing. And that's how I got into it. I did it for those 2 guys, and it was so successful. Then they both gave me referrals, and I kind of just grew my business out of referrals. So when I started, I just took on those properties, not knowing really what they would do. And then I got into the place to where I was getting way too many referrals. And then it was $100,000 minimum. Then it went to $150. Now I'm at $200 because I charge 20% and a $300 a month retainer. I mean, if I can't do $35,000, $40,000 a year, then it's not worth my time to take on the property. Once again, trying to optimize cash and time, based on the volume I have available inside of that portfolio.
So they're all big ones. The 12 you're co-hosting those are large, very huge producers.
There's one. The only one that's not is a cottage in East Beach in Gulf Shores that I purchased in early 2020, and I sold it to one of those referrals, and I'm co-hosting for him. It says about $85,000 a year, but I've done it, for him since I sold it to him right when I started. That kind of all tsunamied with those 3 properties at one time. I would not take it on today, but I'm also not going to, he doesn't want to do it, so I'll continue to do it for him. But everything else is pretty much over $150,000 gross. So what I like to do is, if a property is doing, 150, 170, and it's underperforming, managed by a property management company, like I took on a 6.5 beachfront property in Gulf Shores last December. My wife came in, she's an interior designer. I said, I need $100,000, to fix up your property. He's all, I can give you 50 now and then 50 next year. Done. And we did 50,000 over Christmas. We started on January 1st. He did 180 with a 6.5 beachfront in West Beach. That's ridiculous. And I think we're on pace, do like about 270, 280 this year. If we can really ramp up through the fall. I still have, Christmas and New Year's open. I've actually blocked it off and now just released it and jacked up the rates like $2,500 a night. We might be able to push 300. So those are the properties that I like, because then it's just a win-win for both me as a co-host and also the owner.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, listen, 24 properties in however many markets. I gotta imagine it's a lot of markets.
7 markets.
Okay, well, 7's not that terrible for 24. But you're busy. That'll keep you busy. You're managing all the personalities and HVAC guys and electricians and all that kind of stuff and rehabs. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
It is. I mean, the majority of that. So I've got 9 down in Gulf Shores, right? So that's a lot. Combined, I own 2 and I manage 7 in Gulf Shores. I mean, I've got everything down there. It makes it a little bit easier. And even my contractors from Gulf Shores have traveled up to North Carolina for me, and that type of stuff. So I think that, everybody worries about the boots on the ground and the systems. I think if you're in any decent market, kind of the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, if they're in, and yours in Avery short-term shop group, if they're in my build short-term rental group, you're one post away from getting, some recommendations. I just don't think it's as challenging as it was before all of this stuff happened. In 15, 16, 17, it was way harder, for us to try to find those services. Today, it's, you got Turno, you got all these online groups and marketplaces. It's just, I think that's a mindset deal for most people, that if you're going to get into this business, most people are investing within 25 miles of their primary residence where they live. Open up the country and make it your oyster and find the best deals and make a financial decision. You can find cleaners HVAC, plumbers. It's really not that challenging.
Oh, 100%, all across the board. In 2015, it was hard. I mean, people were knocking on our door just because we had a list of people, and now
Right.
it's everywhere.
This episode of The Short Term Show is brought to you by The Short Term Shop. 30-year fixed mortgages, tax benefits, and long-distance management training made easy are just a few of the perks of owning a short-term rental. The Short Term Shop can help you buy and learn how to manage your property from anywhere in the world. Just go to theshorttermshop.com and click Get Connected. Again, that's theshorttermshop.com, and we are brokered by eXp. See y'all over there.
It's just like the hosts and the buyers. They're coming out. They came out of the woodwork for about 3 years, and they're not the only ones that got in on the action. The vendors got in on the action too. You got guys, contractors moving in from wherever to come to these vacation towns to get in on it. Because here's the deal, and I'm sure you'll agree. If you live in a vacation town, which I do, I live in one of these little, vacation towns where nobody lives, and everybody here is from a different state, and they leave in a week. If you live in one of these towns and you answer your phone, you will be busy, guaranteed, because nobody wants to answer their phone, man. They're on vacation time. They're like half retired. It's a whole different world in these little towns. So now we've got all these people that came in because there was a bit of a gold rush there, for not only for the cash flow and the equity and the, people that park money or whatever the case may be, or somewhere they wanted to go on vacation. But there was a gold rush as far as maintenance and rehabs and everything else too. So it has gotten a lot easier, which is a great thing for us. It has gotten easy's not the right word, but it's definitely not what it used to be. But let's stay on
Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, let's stay on that topic of noobs. We see too many noobs in the last 2 years, right? Like where it just was almost like a cash grab, like they just came out of nowhere, and we're glad they did, we're happy that they did, but now we're really starting to see a separation of the men and the girls and the boys and the ladies, right? And because there's so many people that and it's not just short term, but you and we're just so immersed in this world, but people get into real estate and they don't really grasp the concept of what it takes to be a good landlord. Because that's what we're doing here, right? For lack of a better way to put it, if I were to describe what I do to a stranger on the street that was, let's say maybe an older gentleman or something like that, I would say I'm a landlord because he's going to understand that, and if it's somebody a little more sophisticated, I would probably say I'm a property manager. But we got so many people that got involved where they just kind of set it and forget it, and you can't do that. And I think that's where there's like a little bit of a negative context on the space right now. And I don't necessarily think it's the space's fault. So I guess there's a two-part question here. What are your thoughts on all those people that got in? Are they going to start disappearing? We are seeing more listings. Is that good for us? And then also, do you have any words of wisdom to avoid that happening to somebody? How do I become the better landlord and not fall into that trap?
Yeah, I think number one, I'm going to take question number 2 first. I think it's, learning how to underwrite your investment. There's so much education out here from what, just this podcast to I have 2 podcasts. Avery's podcasting. Avery and I are doing a boot camp. I mean, Avery's written a book. You have everybody doing masterminds, all this stuff. You need to immerse yourself in number one, learn how to underwrite it. How do you select a market? How do you, select a property? Like, basics are, people don't understand. You don't just buy a market. You don't just, because everybody's in Gatlinburg, or everybody's in Destin or Gulf Shores. You don't just go there and pick a property, your standard 3-2, without all the other important components and buy it. Those are the people that are getting screwed. The ones that didn't go look at the property, the ones that, just relied on the agent or listing photos or whatever that is. You have to underwrite these things. For most of us, it's the biggest investment we will ever make.
Yep.
Luke, I built a 50 and 2 $30 million companies before I got into this. I had never, ever put more than $120,000 into a company. The first short-term rental I bought on my own with my wife, a beach house, I put in 127 grand. So you have to underwrite this stuff and run pro formas and know what your expenses are going to be. And most importantly, from my perspective, if you want to do what I do, and that's build super properties, you have to know the marketability. Even though ego aside, I'm the best freaking marketer in our short-term rental industry. I can't just say, hey, Luke, Avery, get me a little $450,000, $550,000, 3-bedroom, 2-bath cabin anywhere in the Smoky Mountains and make it crush. If it's like surrounded with trees, steep driveway, no property, and it's 30 minutes from everything, I have nothing to market except for the cabin, right? Location, proximity, views, traffic generators. It's one of the reasons I'm huge on places like Hot Springs, Arkansas, because nobody's investing there. Luke, it's the redneck Riviera for the Midwest. And they have a lake, they have a national park 1 mile from downtown, they have a casino, and they have a legit 6-month horse track that is all driving traffic, and it's underpriced right now. Find those types of markets. That's why I invest in tier 2. I did not invest in the Smokies because I didn't want to have to spend 100 G's post-close, for the Sega, sit 4-person $50,000 video games and the $75,000 mod pool on the roof. All that shit is standardized to compete. That's why I went to Banner Elk, North Carolina, and was like the second person to build out a 3-car garage into a game room. It's why when I sat at the pizza place in Seaside in 2015, and one of my best friends, a guy in my wedding I play professional golf with, he owns Frangista Beach Rentals down there. And if you remember Frangista Beach Resort, he made about $1 billion tearing that thing down at the Millennium and selling houses. And I said, dude, I called him Wee Wee. His name's William Wilson. I said, Wee Wee, Bree wants to buy a beach house. We got $127,000 in cash. All she wants to do is hear the beach, see the beach, smell the beach. He's like, dude, you can't afford to buy anything here. That was in 15. So we went to Gulf Shores and made millions in Gulf Shores doing what everybody does in Seaside and Seagrove and Dune Allen and 30A, right? Golf carts, bicycles, high-end amenities, all that type of stuff. So take what you learn from these markets and place them someplace else that is underserved. That's part of the underwriting process. If you go back to the beginning of this podcast, that's why I love this ultra luxury condo in Coram, Montana, because it is ultra luxury. That doesn't exist in the market. It has proximity. It's less than 5 miles to the entrance of a national park. It's got mountain views. It checks all of those boxes. If I can't check those boxes, I don't invest. And I think, Luke, probably 90%, specifically a lot of the professionals that were buying properties sight unseen, they either didn't know to check those boxes or they just thought, hey, I can just write a check and I'm going to print cash. I got in because I saw what would happen, and I could do 7, 8 at the peak, 9 or 10 times, cash flow on STR versus LTR. But I'm hands-on. I'm doing the research. I'm working inside the business. And to kind of take that to your first question, I don't believe in Airbnb bust. We've seen that hashtag floating around. I think those same people that bought property sight unseen that just handed over to virtual assistants in Croatia or Mexico or the Philippines and really aren't optimizing, aren't treating this like a business, that bought that average property 5 blocks from the beach, that are second tier at a lake, that are not, they're 30 minutes to Dollywood versus 5 minutes. They don't have views. They can't walk to Ober. All these things that's what people want when they're going to a vacation rental market. And it's even more important, in my opinion, if you're investing in urban areas like Atlanta, downtown Nashville, Chicago. We're not just talking vacation rental markets here. They made average purchases, and that's the segment that has gotten saturated. My segment, there's a bigger separation of church and state today, meaning the lower end average properties and the super properties, and it's getting wider. People are still willing to pay for those high-end super luxury properties, but they don't want middle ground anymore, right? So the middle ground in our world is getting crushed. Sears, Kmart, Applebee's, Ruby Tuesdays, Gap, these places are going away. It's like literally quick service restaurants, Chipotle, Blaze Pizza, Panera, that super low end quick stuff, or it's high end steakhouses. You look at home goods, discount stores, outlets on the bottom end, and then you look at Restoration Hardware on the high end. All those middle ground in America is getting squished right now, and I think we're going to see that same thing. That's the segment of this industry that's getting affected by Airbnb and bust.
Yeah. I agree. I got a couple of things there. So, first of all, I got to defend my Smokies. So, because, and again, that's where I started. We lived in outside of Nashville, and we got we bought our first rental house in Nashville, actually, in Madison. And then we went to the Smokies because it was right down the road, and it was just a natural evolution for us. And I'm madly in love with it there. But, you do have a point. And it's the low-hanging fruit of vacation markets, 100%. It's the biggest vacation. It's Airbnb's biggest vacation market, biggest market worldwide.
Right.
And so it is the low-hanging fruit, but I do believe in it. And I also think that you have more competition there, but you're competing with a lot of idiots. There's just a lot of people that just are not good at this. And it's because they just don't take it seriously. Like you said, they're not thinking of themselves as landlords. They put it on the internet and they put it on Price Labs, and they may or may not even set a base rate on Price Labs. And then here's what happens. Here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing after, a year or 12, 16 months, 18 months, people, they'll send me an email, and I guarantee you're getting the same thing. And they say, my property's not making any money. Can you take a look at it? I'm not getting any bookings. And what's happened here, Bill, this is what I think. I think that their mortgage hit and they didn't have enough to cover it. And then all of a sudden there's like this panic. Oh man, I need to go back and pay more attention. And it's too late at that point. That's the hard part. It's too late. It'll take you 6 months to catch back up. You got to work on, especially right now. I'm seeing it a ton right now because August and September, as you know, in almost every market in America, they're freaking hard. Everybody's going back to school. Yes, the economy's a little weird right now. I personally attribute that to international travel. I don't think it's that any people don't have money. The passport office is backed up 1 million miles. People are going overseas. And I think in 2020, late 2024, 2025, our rents are going to be back up where they should be. And not only that, I mean, they're already pretty close. I'm going to ask you about that in a second. But not only that, but I think the market's going to naturally shake out some of these people who did not realize what they were getting themselves into. Bigger Pockets has a statistic, 50%. And again, I heard this straight from David Green. I don't know where he got it, but 50% of all investment properties are sold in the first 12 months. And there were so many of these things sold in the last 3 years. I'm actually kind of surprised there's not more people getting out. Statistically, I think everything seems to be pretty damn healthy. So I got to defend my Smokies there a little bit. I massive part of my heart in that market. We're going there for Thanksgiving this year. Looking forward to. We were there every day for a long time. But don't take what I said wrong. I love the Smokies. Yeah,
but you can't plop a standard 3-2 cabin with no amenities and no proximity in that market and be successful. We're seeing it in I think what's the name of that valley there? Wares Valley, right? You guys have a property in Wares Valley.
Yeah.
I've got a student. He's going to be here sitting front row with me and Avery. I'm not going to say his name on Saturday and Sunday. And he's one of the guys that's, like you said, that's struggling because he waited too long. He made a little bit of money and, he's got to be successful now or he's older. It's going to really impact him and his family. And he's leaning on both Avery and I to try to help him, get out of this rut because his property was very average. There's nothing wrong with it. My point is that I don't believe you can go in and invest average in that market and really succeed right now. I think those are the ones you're going to see gone. By bedroom count too, right? So that's one of the things I like is I've leveled up to bigger properties. It gives me a more insulation. If you just look at the numbers on AirDNA STR Insights by bedroom count and you see how it just is exasperating at 2 and 3 bedrooms, and then it gets a little bit lower at 4, a little bit lower at 5, 6, 7, you get up to 8 bedrooms. There's a lot less competition at that price point. The other thing I think people really need to consider is who are they targeting? Who's their ideal buyer? I love going after wealthy people in every single business I've ever done, because if somebody makes 7 figures and they take a 10% hit or a 20% hit on their income, they'll feel it. But it's one thing to go from making $1 million to $800,000. If you're $150,000 a year household income, taking home, $9,000, $10,000 post-tax a month, and you lose $1,000 a month in income, that's felt like 4 to 5 times harder. That's harder to save for a, $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 a week vacation. So that's a lot of that planning as you decide and you build out your portfolio and the locations you're going to invest in. becomes critical.
Yes, agreed. Now, another thing, I agree with you on location. It's huge. It's huge. It's huge. And I feel like there was a period of time there for about 2 years where people were just didn't even care where the damn thing was. They were just
give me
buying.
something in the Smokies. I just got to be there.
Just buying blindly, and I, I'm like, man, that's a little far out there. I'm like, I hate to tell you, but you might've bought one that was a little far out, and so there is a little bit of that going on. But now the sight unseen thing, I'm going to give a speech on that. And you're going to 100% agree here. It can be done. It can be done, but you can't buy a house from a distance if you don't know what the hell you're doing. You got to have a little bit of experience. I mean, at least 2 or 3 under your belt, and a good team that you trust, a home inspector that you trust. I mean, most home inspectors don't communicate at all, so to go into a home inspection with somebody who's probably not going to communicate with you, if you're a first-time buyer, it's probably a little too much. So, I do agree that if you can get to the house, you have to do that. I think more often than not, I try to walk my properties once a year. I want to smell it and touch it and feel it and hold it and know what my guests are going through. That's a big part of it. It really is. If you don't know what kind of product you're offering, how can you be upset when they give you 4 stars, 3 stars? Because when's the last time you were there? Let me add, oh, you're worried? You're upset about your 3-star review? Let me ask you a question. When's the last time you were at this house? You know what I mean? Because those two things are freaking related. You can't tell what your cleaner what to do if you haven't seen it. Get your ass on an airplane and go there. It's, first of all, it's fun. It's fun. And that's another thing, man. This asset class is the only appreciating asset that you can go on vacation to. I'm going to let you steal that from
Amen.
me. I'm going to let you steal that from me. And it's huge. That is a huge thing, man. That's why we got in this to begin with, And so go use it. Go use it. We got caught up in, for a while there, we got caught up in, I can't go there. It's going to cost me money. Screw that. If you go there, and yes, it costs you a little bit of rental revenue, but it will make you way more rental revenue when you leave with the information that you gathered. And do I go to my properties and most often say, wow, I really didn't need to come here. It's perfect. Yeah, most of the time I do say that. But if I don't go there and make sure that it's perfect, how am I going to know? So
you don't know if you don't go visit. We, my wife, every summer, when our kids get out of school, we vacation every week during summer. This year, we went to 6 different properties and we did one trip internationally. You mentioned passports. We went to the Bahamas. Like when we were in Gulf Shores, we went to both of our properties that we owned and even properties that we co-host. I think you have to have your eye on the ball, or you're just managing reactively based on guest reviews, and it's too late at that point if things are going wrong. I agree with everything that you said.
Thank you. Wonderful. Well, let's talk numbers. Are you down? I know you're a numbers guy. Are you down at all from last year? Or where are you? Last calculation.
I got annihilated in January and February. My portfolio was down 31% in January and February, and that's after adding a beach mountain property. We got no fucking snow in North Carolina, so nobody came to go skiing, unfortunately. My number one property is in West Beach and Gulf Shores. I did 357 my first year for 6-bedroom, 4-bath, tier 2 property in West Beach and Gulf Shores. And that property was down like 18, 19 grand in those 2 months. I was vastly concerned in January and February. Bookings weren't coming in as strong as they had, in the previous years for summertime. But I just kind of ramped up my marketing, sent out more emails, did more social, ramped up Facebook ads. I do a buy, sell, trade group strategy, ramped up my marketing and everything. I can tell you that we just closed out July. We're up 3.7%. So we've had almost a 40% delta shift from the end of February until today. And a lot of that happened because I took my biggest property and I've done traditional Saturday to Saturday. Stays, and I decided to test, and I did like 4 weeks at 3-night minimums, and I raised the price by 30% for shorter stays, and I was able to get my average week up to around $19,000 a week, where last year I was doing about $15,600. So that delta really helped me catch up like on that one property. So a lot of people, I don't think they understand pricing, especially in these traditional markets that do a lot of Saturday to Saturday or 4 or 5 night minimums, that you can be more competitive with higher pricing if you do allow shorter stays. But you really need to have an understanding of how high demand your properties are. So kind of going back to the earlier part of the podcast here, Luke, in that 1031, you asked me about the property I sold in Beach Mountain. It was an A-frame. It was cool, but it was still dated on the outside. And I had, it was so going to be, had no hot tub. How are you in the mountains with no hot tub? It was going to cost me $20,000 to $23,000 to put in a hot tub because of cranes, access through the neighbor's yard, reinforcing decks, all that type of stuff. So I decided to sell the property, take my cash and reinvest, as opposed to making that investment into a property that did not stand out enough, it was 1.1 miles from the ski resort. It wasn't ski in, ski out. It wasn't walkable. It didn't have great views. It was, probably a 7 out of 10 views, just all these things. And it was an afterthought when I bought my Banner Elk property and had $135,000 left over in a 1031 that I had to spend. Right. So it was okay. I made 41 grand, selling it and my rental income over a 14-month period, but I didn't want to continue to invest into that asset. So that's kind of why I rolled out of that. I think that up 3.7% right now, year to date, I'm happy with it. And ironically, probably 80% of my portfolio is booked pretty equivalent to where we were last fall. So I think I'm going to have pretty much an even Steven year in 23 versus 22. And I would be perfectly happy with that.
I agree. I'm actually, last I calculated, which was, I think, 1st of July. So it's been a minute now. I was down 3.4 for the year across all my properties, short terms only, obviously. And I agree. My fall's looking really good. My August and September, I did prices this morning. Again, recording this in mid August, 23, and I did pricing this morning. And I gotta be honest, I not to sound like a dick, I kind of feel bad because when I look at my calendars, I'm like, dude, my calendars look good. I'm happy with them. They're really kind of cranking. And then,
there's no reason to ever feel like a dick or be resentful because of your success.
Thank you, because I do see all these people on the internet that are like struggling, and again, it goes back to I just feel like a lot of people are in over their heads here, and I don't know, but I look at my calendars, and if nothing else, if you're listening to this, take some comfort in the fact that my calendars are exactly where I want them to be in fall 23. I'm happy. I do think I'll probably end up about even from 22 overall, maybe 1 or 2% down, which to me, that's a massive win. And again, I think rates and gross incomes 2025 are like going to be gangbusters, right? Because you're getting all these people, these not that great operators are going to drop off a cliff, and people are going out, and from now, or like really beginning of this summer, when our kids got out of school this summer until about March, folks are spending a lot of money on vacations because there's so many places they could not go. And then when next March through the entire year of 2025 rolls back around, they're going to say, dude, I'm not doing France again. I'm not doing Spain again. That was too much money. It's a lot of flights and a big pain in the butt. Why don't we just go get into dang Tahoe and go to Gulf Shores? It's so much cheaper and easier, So I really think that not only are we not really looking at it much of a dip, if between you and I, we're exactly even. I'm down 3.4. You're up 3.7. We're dead even, right? So
I think a lot of people fixate on the actual number. I look at, is if I'm between even and up 5% or even and down 5%, pretty much roughly that's about breaking even Steven, right? So you just got to think about that from a mental perspective. I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, the primary drive-in vacation rental markets are the ones that, were the most successful in the last downturn that we had. Not COVID, but if you look at the Great Recession in 9, 10, and 11. If you look at the drive-in vacation rental markets during COVID, second half of 2020, once most of the country started to open up all the way through the end of 2022, same exact thing. Sure, Miami's thriving. Sure, Hawaii's thriving. But the longevity, take a look at airline prices right now. I have the only place that I fly to that I own it really is Montana. And it's the airfare is insane. I was looking at booking spring break so we could go out there and go skiing, kind of an end of the year deal. $1,200 to $1,300 for coach tickets for one ticket to get from Nashville to Kalispell Airport. I told my wife, I said, let's pull the kids out one day early for spring break and let them go back one day late, and I'll drive. And because I've got a family of 4, that's $5,000 in airfare, just to be able to get there. So that's where the drive-in markets historically will perform, because it bleeds down into middle America and it's accessible. You think about, why is Gatlinburg so great? There's some good stuff to do there, but there's a lot of other great places, mountain markets around the country. It's because of the 24 million people that can get there within 5 hours. It's because the first 2 beaches that people can get to from Chicago all the way to New York driving south is, to hit Destin and Gulf Shores, right? You got to think about how people are going to buy things, and they are buying from us. Those of you that are listening out there, they're buying, a week stay or a 3-night stay at our property and a service, that goes along with that. That's where just nailing that buyer persona to what your ADR is going to be, to what your design is going to be, to how much you put into a property or how little post-close can make or break the underwriting of the investment.
Yeah, and shout out to the guests. Again, it doesn't get talked about enough. I do want to thank my guests, and they're not listening to this, but we can't do it without them. I really appreciate all these folks that work their ass off. I come from a humble start. My dad was a mailman and a vet, and a Vietnam vet, and I just think about all the families that work their ass off to come spend their money on these vacations, and that's really number one. All right, so I do want to mention that. I feel like I don't talk about that enough. So thank you to all these hardworking Americans that come spend their money in our little vacation towns. It's very much appreciated. Now back to the pricing is everything. Okay, back to management. Pricing is everything. We can both agree with that. Now there's 4 elements or so of your listing on Airbnb and Vrbo that you need to tweak here and there. Pictures probably most important, but for me, and I think you probably would agree, pricing is number one in this business, and you got to focus on it. If you're suffering right now, it's because you're not pricing your property right. I have a perfect example. I talked to one of Avery's clients yesterday, and she's a very nice lady. I don't remember. I'm not going to give her name or anything, but she was talking, I can't get anything in September, which is very common this time of year. It's very common. So I'm not getting any September. And I said, let's do some math. So we sat down and did some math. And she was priced. I think it was a 4-bedroom. I think it was in the Smokies. And I think she was around $415 a night or something like that. So I said, let's do some math here. So you're not booked at all August, September. Throwaway nights. They really are. Other than Labor Day, it's garbage. And you're priced, pretty high on the markets. We sat down and did a whole bunch of math. And then finally she said, well, last September I did $6,200. And, she was very happy about that. And I said, okay, let's sit down and do some math. So we did the math. I said, what's your cleaning fee? We figured out, 4, 5, probably 6 cleans a month or something. We took that out of the gross out of her 6,200. And we broke it down to the fact that what she needed to get to where she was happy with last September was about $216 a night. Meanwhile, she's priced at about $415 a night. So she's literally almost twice as much as what she would have been happy with last year in the biggest year ever. But I think people there's a mental block there with like average nightly rate versus what is it worth right now on these actual dates. So focus on pricing. I think that's my point. I don't know if I had a point, but if I had a point, that was it.
And I think if I could add on to a couple of points to that, know your lead time, your booking lead time. And like Luke's mentioned Price Labs. It sounds like you use Price Labs. I use Price Labs. Your pricing way out, like 90 days plus, should be higher than your pricing at like in the last 7 days. So I actually tier my pricing to come down outside of season, like Luke's talking about August, September, October. That's shoulder season for most of us, right? So now I have my far out pricing is typically about 40% higher than what I would charge if somebody books within the last 7 days. And you need to think about that pricing strategy. It's not just set up Price Labs or Wheelhouse or Beyond or whatever and forget it. You need to have some strategy on how you're setting up that pricing based on your booking lead time.
100%. I love it. We've said it all. We've done it all. Listen, I want to make this a regular occurrence. Let's shoot for at least once a year. We can do once a year, can't we?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. And maybe you have me on sometime.
We should probably hook up at like a GNR, Kiss, Iron Maiden and do it there.
That we need to. I'm going to. Let's talk concerts. I don't have my schedule in front of me, but I do have a lot. I know you got at least one or two coming.
I'm just doing GNR. I've heard all the shit that the Carl family is going to be doing. You guys are like going on this road trip.
She's got me going. I got a 2-year-old she's taking to these concerts. Well, it'd be 3, but we're going to Power Trip, which is the big one in California at Coachella. It's got Iron Maiden and every huge band ever. Although Ozzy just dropped out, and but now Priest is going to be there instead, so that's cool. We're going to GNR, same as you, but different show. We're going to Biloxi. We're going to Kiss in Knoxville, which is the day after Thanksgiving. We're gonna have Thanksgiving in the mountains, and we're going to Aerosmith in Knoxville. I think that's it. Which is too many, quite frankly.
When is Aerosmith in Knoxville? Yep. You need to let me know. I need to look that up. I need to take my wife to that.
That is because you're close. You're close. So you should come. It's not we got time. I think it's January.
Did you say Kiss is the Friday after Thanksgiving?
Kiss is the day after, or maybe I think it's the day after Thanksgiving in Knoxville. They're coming to Nashville too, though. I don't know when. Maybe. Really,
I've never seen Kiss, so I'm gonna have to look that up.
Now this will be the end of it for Kiss. This is it for real.
Well, they're like 80.
Yeah, exactly. And we're huge fans, mega fans, and we got front row. I don't want to know what she paid for that, but I figure my son has a pretty good chance someday, way in the future. I don't even really want to think about it, but I feel like my son may have a chance to be the last living person on the earth to say he saw Kiss live. That's pretty cool to me.
That could be very true.
It's very possible. I hope he appreciates it, but who knows? But anyway, what else? Anything on the way out?
All good. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. You reading a book recently that you can throw at us? I like a good book recommendation.
You know, I had Mike McAllowicz, who wrote Profit First, The Pumpkin Plan, as my keynote at my conference last year, and I just reread The Pumpkin Plan for the second time. I hadn't read it for about 3 or 4 years. I don't know if I can. Oh yeah, here it is. I can show you right here.
Yes.
Pumpkin Plan by Mike McAllowicz. Absolutely love this book. And I'm a big guy about planning out our future. I believe we have the ability, as every human being does, to architect our outcome. We just need to be very intentional about it, and the Pumpkin Plan is a really simple strategy that can help us all be a little bit more successful.
I have a story, actually. We're both storytellers. I'm a huge McAllowicz fan, huge fan. Read every one of his books. That was his first one that I read, and I remember vividly listening to it while stripping popcorn ceiling at a flip I was doing years ago in Springfield, Tennessee, believe it or not. And I was thinking to myself, man, I hope I don't have to do much more of this stripping crap. I would really rather move on to something a little better than this. But yeah.
Well, how about him and Avery riffing on the guitar backstage after he got off stage? That was pretty cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Yes. Huge fan.
I think they were playing some AC/DC or something. I don't remember exactly. Maybe Hell's Bells or something like that.
Yeah. Very cool, man. Yeah. Avery can stretch. He's a rocker for sure. But yeah, man, great to see you. Thanks for coming. And on behalf of Bill Faeth for Short Term Rental Management, don't overthink it.